The summer evening at Glacier National Park felt harmless, almost tender. The kind of quiet that makes you believe nothing bad can happen because nothing ever has. Pine needles whispered under a soft breeze, and the sun bled slowly into the mountains, painting the peaks a tired red. Ranger Elena Ward stood at the edge of Apgar Campground, her uniform still stiff, her boots barely broken in, reminding herself, again, that she belonged here. It was only her third week as a full ranger. She told herself the stories were exaggerations. The warnings. The murmurs from veteran rangers who spoke of grizzlies with a respect that bordered on fear. Elena had grown up believing nature was predictable if you followed the rules. Store your food. Make noise on the trail. Keep your distance. She believed in order. Systems. Training manuals. That belief was about to be torn apart. Her radio crackled once, then went silent. Elena frowned and tapped it against her palm. Dead zones were common, but something about the sudden stillness made her skin prickle. Even the birds had stopped calling. The forest didn't feel peaceful anymore, it felt alert, like it was holding its breath. She heard the scream a minute later. It came from deeper in the trees, sharp and high, cutting through the dusk like a blade. Not the playful yell of campers or kids messing around, but raw terror. Human fear stripped bare. Elena froze. Training said assess before acting. Instinct said run. She ran. Branches clawed at her arms as she pushed through the tree line, heart slamming so hard she felt dizzy. Another scream followed, shorter this time, strangled, as if something had silenced it mid-breath. Elena smelled it before she saw anything, a thick, metallic scent carried on warm air. Blood. She slowed, every step suddenly heavy. Her flashlight trembled in her grip as she swept it across the ground. A cooler lay tipped over, food scattered like an offering. Bear spray canister, empty. A tent shredded open. From the side, fabric torn as if it were paper. No one inside. Then she saw the drag marks. They led into the trees, deep and wide, pressed violently into the dirt. Elena swallowed hard. Her mouth tasted like copper now. This wasn't a bluff charge. This wasn't a warning. This was a kill, or something worse. Her radio crackled again. Anyone, help, bear. Static swallowed the rest. Elena raised the radio with shaking hands. This is Ranger Ward. I copy. Where are you? Nothing. The forest answered instead. A low sound rolled through the trees, deep, vibrating, almost felt more than heard. A huff. A warning. The kind of sound that didn't come from something afraid. Elena turned slowly. 30 yards away, the brush moved. She didn't see the bear fully at first, just mass. Dark fur rippling as something enormous shifted its weight. When its head lifted, moonlight caught its eyes, reflecting them like broken glass. The grizzly stood taller than anything Elena had ever imagined, its shoulders hunched with power, its muzzle wet and red. It stared at her. Time fractured. Elena's body forgot how to move. Every lesson, every protocol vanished under the crushing realization that she was prey. The bear snorted, stamping the ground once, testing her fear. Then it turned and vanished into the trees, silent for something so massive. Only then did Elena breathe. She backed away slowly, legs threatening to fold beneath her. As she retreated, another sound drifted through the night, voices. Campers emerging from tents, confused, frightened. A small group gathered near the fire pit, faces pale in the lantern glow. Ranger, a man said, voice shaking. Something attacked our friend. We heard screaming. Elena looked at them, 5 strangers, unarmed, unprepared, eyes searching her face for reassurance she wasn't sure she could give. Everyone needs to stay together, she said, forcing steadiness into her voice. No one goes alone. Not for any reason. A woman clutched her child tighter. Was it a bear? Elena hesitated. Yes, she said. A grizzly. The word landed heavy. Somewhere in the dark, something moved again, branches snapping, footsteps too quiet for their size. Elena realized with a sickening certainty that the attack wasn't over. This wasn't an accident. The park wasn't asleep. And the night had only just begun. Elena Ward had always believed that fear announced itself loudly, panic, screaming, chaos. She was wrong. Real fear crept in quietly, settling into the body like cold water, numbing everything it touched. As the campers huddled together beneath the lantern's weak glow, Elena felt that cold spread through her chest, steady and suffocating. She counted them again. 5 adults. 1 child. No weapons. No radio signal strong enough to trust. And somewhere beyond the tree lean, a grizzly that had already tasted human blood. Listen to me, Elena said, keeping her voice low. We're going to move to higher ground. Slowly. No running. No noise unless I tell you. A man with a beard and hollow eyes shook his head. You said the bear's still out there. Yes, Elena replied. Which means staying here is worse. The forest answered him before she could say more. A sudden crash echoed from the left, branches snapping violently, followed by a deep, thunderous growl that vibrated through the dirt beneath their feet. The child whimpered, burying his face into his mother's jacket. Elena raised her flashlight, scanning the darkness. The beam felt useless, swallowed by shadows that seemed thicker than they should have been. Trees pressed close together, trunks like prison bars. The air smelled wrong now, musky, sour, alive. They began to move. Every step felt like an invitation to be hunted. Elena walked backward, eyes never leaving the forest edge, one hand gripping the flare at her belt. She could feel them watching her, 6 pairs of desperate eyes, waiting for her to fail. Another growl rolled through the trees, closer this time. Don't look, Elena whispered. Just keep walking. The ground sloped upward toward a rocky ridge that overlooked the campground. She remembered it from her training hikes, a narrow pass, steep on both sides. If they could reach it, the terrain might slow the bear. Might. A scream shattered the night. It came from the opposite direction, another. Campsite, unseen, swallowed by darkness. The sound cut off abruptly, replaced by a wet crunch that made Elena's stomach twist. The forest erupted with movement, birds exploding from branches, something massive charging through brush. The grizzly wasn't stalking anymore. It was hunting. Move! Elena shouted. Panic broke the group. Footsteps pounded, breaths turned ragged. Someone tripped, crashing hard onto the dirt. Elena grabbed the man's arm and hauled him up just as the ground behind them shook. The bear burst into view, huge, unstoppable, its fur matted dark along its chest. It charged past them. Not at them. Straight toward the screams. Elena skidded to a stop, horror freezing her in place. The realization struck her like a blow, there were more people out there. And the bear knew it. The screams ended. Silence followed, thick and unbearable. The group reached the ridge minutes later, collapsing behind a cluster of boulders. Elena crouched low, heart hammering, ears straining for any sound. She smelled blood again, stronger now, carried by the breeze like a warning. Her radio crackled to life. Multiple casualties, repeat, grizzly attacks. Elena Ward here, she hissed. I need backup now. We have confirmed aggressive behavior. This is not defensive. Static. Then a voice, broken and distant. All units, communications failing, shelter in place. Shelter in place. Elena almost laughed. Below them, the campground burned with scattered lantern light, abandoned tents flapping in the wind. And then she saw it, the grizzly standing in the open, illuminated by moonlight. It lifted its head, sniffing the air, and turned slowly toward the ridge. Toward them. The bear rose onto its hind legs, towering, silhouetted against the stars. It let out a roar so deep Elena felt it in her bones. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't fear. It was dominance. The child began to cry. The sound was small, fragile, and catastrophic. The grizzly dropped to all fours. Elena pulled the flare free, her hands slick with sweat. "When I light this," she whispered, "you run. Don't stop. Don't look back." "But what about you?" the woman asked. Elena didn't answer. The bear charged uphill, faster than anything that size should move. Elena struck the flare, red fire screaming into the night. She stepped forward, waving it, shouting with everything she had. "Hey! Come on!" The bear veered, confused, enraged, charging past her at the last second, missing her by feet. The heat of its body rushed over her like a furnace. She fell hard, the world spinning. As she hit the ground, Elena understood something with terrifying clarity. This wasn't a single attack. This was a nightmare unfolding. And Glacier National Park would never be the same again. Elena Ward lay on the cold rock, lungs burning, ears ringing, the red flare still hissing beside her like a dying scream. For a moment she thought she was dead, that the crushing weight she expected simply hadn't arrived yet. Then she felt pain bloom along her shoulder and knew she was still alive. Unfortunately. Above her, boots scraped stone as the campers fled into the darkness. She didn't look after them. She couldn't. Her eyes were locked on the trees where the grizzly had vanished, the brush still trembling as if the forest itself hadn't decided whether to calm down or explode again. The flare burned out. Darkness rushed in to replace it, thicker than before. Elena forced herself to stand. Her knees shook so badly she had to brace against the boulder. She reached for her radio again, though she already knew it wouldn't help. "This is Ranger Ward," she whispered. "If anyone can hear me, respond." Only static answered, low, mocking, endless. Then something else broke through it. Breathing. Not hers. It came from behind her, slow and heavy, wet with effort. Elena turned inch by inch, flashlight snapping on. The beam cut through the darkness and landed on a man crouched behind another rock. His eyes were wide, unfocused, his hands shaking violently. "Sir." Elena whispered. "You're safe. You're." He shook his head hard. "No," he rasped. "No, I'm not." She saw it then. The blood soaking his shirt. Deep claw marks across his chest, flesh torn open like paper. The smell hit her a second later, iron and rot. "It got my wife," he said, voice breaking into something childlike. "It watched me while it did it." Elena swallowed. She knelt beside him, hands hovering uselessly. There was nothing she could do. She knew that the way you know gravity exists, absolute and unforgiving. The man's eyes suddenly shifted past her. "Elena," he whispered. She hadn't told him her name. The breathing returned, closer now, accompanied by the soft crunch of leaves being crushed under immense weight. Elena stood slowly, every muscle screaming at her to run. She turned just in time to see the bear step into the clearing. The grizzly was different now. Its fur was soaked dark along its muzzle and chest. Its eyes locked onto Elena with terrifying focus, not curiosity. Recognition. It lowered its head and exhaled, a sound like a threat and a promise fused together. The man screamed. The bear lunged. Elena didn't remember moving, only the impact as she slammed into the man, shoving him aside as the grizzly's claws tore into the rock where he'd been seconds earlier. Stone exploded under the force. Elena rolled, shoulder screaming in agony, flashlight skittering away into the dark. The bear roared, angry now. It swiped again, catching the man fully this time. There was a sound Elena would hear for the rest of her life, a wet, final crunch followed by silence. She ran. Branches lashed her face. Her lungs felt like they were filling with fire. She didn't know where she was going, only that stopping meant dying. Behind her, the bear followed, not rushing, not panicking. Just keeping pace. Enjoying the chase. Elena burst through the trees and nearly fell off a slope. Below her, moonlight revealed a narrow service road carved into the mountainside. A ranger truck sat abandoned at the far end, door hanging open. Hope surged, sharp and dangerous. She slid down the slope, skin tearing, and sprinted for the truck. Her hands fumbled with the door as she threw herself inside. The keys were already in the ignition. The engine roared to life. Relief lasted exactly 1 second. The truck rocked violently as something slammed into it from the side. Metal shrieked. The windshield cracked, a massive paw slamming down hard enough to cave the hood inward. The Grizzly rose up, towering over the cab, its breath fogging the glass. It stared directly at Elena through the fractured windshield, eyes black and endless. She locked eyes with it. And in that moment, she understood something that made her blood run cold. The bear wasn't confused. It wasn't acting on instinct. It was learning. The truck shuddered again as the bear slammed into it once more. Elena hit the gas, tires screaming as the vehicle lurched forward. The bear fell away, rolling across the road, but even as she sped off, she saw it rise again in the mirror, watching her disappear into the dark. Not defeated. Not afraid. Waiting. As Elena drove blindly into the night, one truth burned in her mind, brighter than terror itself. This wasn't a series of attacks. This was the beginning of a hunt. And she was no longer just surviving it. She was part of it. The road twisted upward like a scar cut into the mountain. Elena drove with one hand locked wide around the steering wheel, the other pressed hard against her shoulder, trying to slow the warm, sticky flow seeping through her uniform. Every bump sent lightning through her arm. She barely felt it. Fear had taken over. Her headlights sliced through fog rolling in from the valley, thick enough to swallow sound. The forest on either side of the road felt closer now, leaning in, watching. She checked the mirror again. Nothing. That terrified her more than seeing the bear. The ranger truck's radio crackled suddenly, exploding into sound so loud Elena flinched. Voices overlapped, panicked, broken, some screaming, some whispering prayers. Bear in the campground. People down. It won't stop. Elena Ward, she said, forcing her voice through clenched teeth. I'm heading toward the Logan Pass station. Anyone copy? Static surged, then a voice punched through, thin, trembling. Ward, thank God. This is Ranger Miles. You need to get out of there. I'm trying, Elena said. There are civilians everywhere. This thing is. It's not one bear, Miles cut in. We've got reports of multiple attacks across the park. But the witnesses, they're all describing the same one. Elena's stomach dropped. That's impossible. I know, Miles said. Just, don't stop moving. The radio died again. The road narrowed ahead, hemmed in by rock walls on one side and a steep drop on the other. Elena slowed, heart pounding. Something felt wrong. Too quiet. Even the engine sounded muted, swallowed by the fog. Then she saw the wreck. A tour van lay on its side across the road, windshield shattered, metal torn open like a crushed can. Blood streaked the pavement, dark and smeared, leading toward the trees. One door hung open, swaying gently. Elena stopped. Every instinct screamed not to. She grabbed her flashlight and stepped out, boots crunching on glass. Hello? She called. Voice breaking the silence. Park ranger, if anyone's alive, answer me. A sound answered. Crying. Soft. Weak. Coming from inside the van. Elena climbed over twisted metal, her breath coming fast. Inside, bodies lay tangled, faces frozen in expressions she couldn't bring herself to study. At the back, a teenage girl huddled under a seat, her leg bent at a wrong angle, blood soaking her jeans. "You're okay," Elena said, though it was a lie. "I'm here." The girl looked up, eyes wild. "It's still here," she whispered. "It watched us. Like we were toys." A low huff echoed from outside the van. Elena's blood turned to ice. The bear stepped into view, fog curling around its massive frame. It was closer than before. Bigger. Its fur clung to its body in wet, dark clumps, and its muzzle was smeared thick with red. It sniffed the air, eyes never leaving Elena. She backed slowly, positioning herself between the girl and the open door. "Don't move," Elena whispered. The grizzly lowered its head and took a step forward. Then another. The metal beneath Elena's boots groaned. The bear stopped, cocking its head slightly, as if amused. As if listening. Elena reached for the flare in her pocket. The bear charged. She struck the flare and hurled it, red fire bursting against the bear's chest. It roared, swiping wildly, stumbling back, but it didn't retreat. It shook its head, furious, eyes burning brighter. Elena grabbed the girl, hauling her upright despite the scream that tore from her throat. They stumbled out the other side of the van, toward the cliff edge. The bear recovered faster than Elena expected, barreling after them, jaws snapping inches away. The ground gave way. Elena felt the world drop out beneath her feet. They fell. Branches tore at them as they tumbled down the slope, rocks smashing into Elena's back. She wrapped herself around the girl instinctively, shielding her as they slammed into a ledge below. Silence followed, then the sound of heavy breathing above. The bear peered over the edge, eyes reflecting moonlight, patient and calm. It didn't jump. It waited. Elena clutched the girl close, realizing the truth with sick clarity. The grizzly didn't need to rush anymore. It had learned the terrain. It had learned them. And it knew there was nowhere left to run. Elena pressed herself flat against the cold stone, every breath shallow, measured, terrified of being heard. The teenage girl, her name was Riley, she'd whispered it through clenched teeth, shook violently beside her, teeth chattering despite the warm night air. Below the cliff, darkness pooled thick and endless. Above them, the bear's shadow loomed, unmoving. Waiting. Minutes stretched into something shapeless. Elena's legs went numb. Her injured shoulder throbbed in sick, rhythmic pulses. Every now and then, pebbles rattled down from above as the grizzly shifted its weight, reminding them it hadn't gone anywhere. "It's still there," Riley breathed. "I know," Elena whispered. The bear exhaled again, slow, deliberate. A sound meant to be heard. Elena realized then that this wasn't just about hunger or territory. The bear was controlling them. Dictating when they moved, when they breathed. It had reduced the vast wilderness to this narrow ledge and trapped them inside it. Her radio buzzed faintly. Elena nearly cried out. She clutched it, pressing the speaker to her ear. "This is Ranger Ward," she whispered urgently. "I have a survivor. We're pinned near Logan Pass, cliffside. The bear is still active." A pause. Then, "Ward, we see movement on thermal. Large. Too large." "What does that mean?" Elena asked. Another pause, longer. "It's pacing. Strategically." Elena's stomach twisted. "Send help. Now." Static swallowed the reply. The bear growled, deep and close. It began moving again, footsteps scraping stone as it descended along another path, one Elena hadn't seen. A safer route. A smarter one. It's coming down, Riley sobbed. Elena scanned the ledge desperately. To their right, a narrow crack opened into the rock face, a shallow crevice, barely visible in the dark. It wasn't much. But it was something. Can you crawl? Elena asked. Riley nodded, biting back tears. They moved inch by inch, squeezing into the rock just as the bear dropped onto the ledge with a heavy thud. The impact shook dust loose, filling Elena's mouth with grit. The grizzly snorted, sniffing, its massive head swinging back and forth. It was so close Elena could hear saliva stringing between its teeth. The bear's claw scraped the stone inches from her face. Riley whimpered. The grizzly froze. It turned its head slowly toward the sound. One enormous paw reached forward, probing the darkness. Its claws hooked into the rock, dragging forward, testing. Elena shoved Riley deeper into the crevice and raised her flashlight with her good hand. She flicked it on and slammed it against the bear's face, screaming, raw, animal, unrecognizable. The bear roared in response, swiping blindly. Its claws grazed Elena's leg, tearing fabric, skin burning white-hot. She didn't stop screaming until her voice cracked and broke. The bear backed up, not retreating, just reassessing. Then it did something Elena would never forget. It sat down. The grizzly lowered itself onto its haunches at the edge of the ledge, staring into the crevice. Patient. Calm. As if it understood time better than she did. As if it knew dawn was hours away, and they weren't going anywhere. Riley began to cry quietly. Elena pulled her close, whispering lies about rescue, about safety, about everything being okay. She didn't believe a single word. Above them, the bear stood again and walked away, its footsteps fading into the dark. Elena didn't relax. She knew better now. An hour passed. Then another. The night stretched endlessly, filled with distant screams echoing through the park, short, sudden, and final. Helicopters thudded far away, never close enough. Sirens wailed faintly, swallowed by trees. The forest was alive with death. Just before dawn, the bear returned. Elena heard it before she saw it, moving faster now, energized. The sky lightened just enough to reveal its silhouette cresting the ledge again. Blood matted its fur in new places. Fresh. It had been busy. The bear roared, louder than before, a sound that rolled across the mountains like a declaration. Elena stood, shaking, positioning herself in front of Riley once more. She raised her empty hands, her body screaming in protest. I'm here, she whispered. Take me. The grizzly stepped forward. And then, gunshots exploded through the morning air. The bear reared back, roaring in fury as bullets struck rock and fur. It bolted, vanishing into the trees with terrifying speed. Elena collapsed, sobbing. Rescue teams swarmed the ledge minutes later, pulling them to safety as the sun finally crested the mountains. But as Elena was loaded onto a stretcher, she looked toward the forest, and felt no relief. Because deep down, she knew something the others didn't yet understand. The grizzly wasn't gone. It was only retreating. And the night had not finished teaching them how small they really were. Daylight should have made everything clearer. That was the lie Elena clung to as the stretcher rattled down the service road, as paramedics shouted over one another, as helicopters thundered overhead like angry gods. Sunlight poured into the valley, touching trees, rocks, blood-stained earth, revealing everything the night had hidden. And yet, nothing felt safer. Elena lay strapped down, oxygen mask fogging with every shaky breath. Her body hurt in ways she couldn't map anymore, pain layered over shock, over exhaustion, over something deeper that had no name. When she closed her eyes, she saw the bear's face, felt its breath on her skin, heard the patience in its silence. Stay with me, Ranger, a paramedic said, voice too loud, too cheerful. You did good. You're safe now. Elena didn't answer. She was watching the tree lean. The emergency staging area near Logan Pass looked like a war zone. Dozens of rangers, state troopers, wildlife officers, medics. Body bags lay zipped and lined up under tarps. Survivors sat wrapped in blankets, rocking, staring into nothing. Some screamed when anyone approached them. Some didn't react at all. Riley was there. The girl sat on the back of an ambulance, her leg splinted, face pale and hollow. When she saw Elena, her eyes widened. "It's still here," Riley said immediately. A ranger tried to hush her. "Sweetheart." "No," Riley insisted, grabbing Elena's hand with surprising strength. "It didn't leave. It just waited." Elena squeezed her fingers back. She believed her. Across the clearing, a heated argument erupted near a command vehicle. Elena caught fragments of it as they rolled her past. "This doesn't match any known behavior. Grizzlies don't do this. 16 confirmed dead, possibly more. National media is already on their way. Put the park on full lockdown." A familiar voice cut through the chaos. Ranger Miles stepped into view, his face gray with exhaustion. When he saw Elena, relief and horror crossed his features at the same time. "You shouldn't be alive," he said quietly. Elena pulled the oxygen mask down. "Neither should half the people who came here for a vacation." Miles nodded grimly. "We tracked it after the shots. Lost it near McDonald Creek. Like it wanted to disappear." "It does," Elena said. "It knows how." Miles stared at her. "What do you mean?" Elena swallowed. "It's not just moving through the park. It's using it. Roads. Cliffs. Campgrounds. It's predicting people." Miles looked away, jaw tight. "Wildlife Command's bringing in federal specialists. They're calling it an anomalous behavioral event." "That's a lie with better grammar," Elena said. Before Miles could respond, a shout echoed from the edge of the clearing. "Movement." Everyone froze. Heads turned as one. Weapons came up. Radios crackled alive. Silence fell so fast it felt physical. Then screaming erupted, from the far side of the trees. Not close. Not distant. Inside the perimeter. Elena felt her heart slam against her ribs. "It got through," she whispered. Chaos detonated. Rangers sprinted. People scattered. Someone fired a warning shot into the air. The screams multiplied, panicked, overlapping, spiraling. Elena tore the straps loose and slid off the stretcher, pain screaming through her body. Miles grabbed her arm. "Ward, don't. It knows where we are," she said. "This is what it does." They reached the tree lean just as a ranger stumbled backward, blood on his sleeve, eyes wild. "It came out of nowhere," he gasped. "It." The bear burst from the brush behind him. In full daylight, it was worse. Its size was undeniable. Its movements deliberate. It ignored the shouting, the gunfire, the chaos. Its eyes locked on the crowd, on density, on fear. On opportunity. Gunshots cracked, echoing off the mountains. Bullets struck fur, muscle, but the bear barely faltered. It charged, forcing people to scatter, breaking the line, creating exactly the disorder it needed. Elena saw it then. Understanding hit her like a physical blow. "It's driving us," she shouted. "It's hurting." No one heard her. The bear slammed into a vehicle, flipping it onto its side with brutal strength. Glass exploded. Someone screamed from inside. The bear reared back, roaring, a sound of rage, yes, but also of command. Then it turned and ran. Straight toward the river. After it, someone yelled. Elena shook her head violently. No, don't chase it. Too late. The bear plunged into the trees again, vanishing as easily as smoke. The forest swallowed it whole. Silence fell once more. The cost was immediate. More injured. More dead. A shattered sense of control. As medics rushed in again, Elena sank to her knees. Her hands shook uncontrollably. Miles crouched beside her. This doesn't end with one bear, he said quietly. Elena stared at the dark line of the forest. No, she replied. This ends with us admitting something we don't want to hear. What? That the wilderness doesn't belong to us, Elena said. And tonight, it reminded us. Far away, deep in the trees, a roar answered, faint, distant, triumphant. The day had come. But the nightmare was still very much awake. They never officially called it a massacre. The reports used safer words: incident, event, anomalous wildlife behavior. Press conferences spoke of rare convergence and tragic misunderstanding between humans and nature. Politicians stood in front of flags and promised reviews, reforms, reassurance. But Elena Ward knew the truth. So did everyone who had been there. Glacier National Park closed before sunset. Gates slammed shut across miles of wilderness. Military helicopters replaced rescue choppers. Federal sharpshooters combed the forest in coordinated lines, armed like they were hunting an enemy combatant instead of an animal. Thermal drones filled the sky, their soft mechanical hum never stopping. They never found the bear. They found signs: trees shredded higher than any grizzly should reach, boulders overturned like toys, half-eaten carcasses of elk and deer left in deliberate places. Once, a drone caught heat moving beneath dense cover near the river. By the time teams arrived, there was nothing but churned mud and silence. As if the forest itself had erased it. Elena watched everything from a hospital bed in Kalispell, her body wrapped in bandages, her shoulder immobilized, her leg stitched and swollen. The room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Every night, she woke screaming, convinced she could hear breathing just beyond the door. Slow. Heavy. Waiting. Riley visited once, wheeled in by a nurse. The girl's eyes were different now, older, sharpened by something no child should ever learn. They're lying, Riley said without preamble. Elena nodded. Yes. They say it's over. Elena closed her eyes. I know. Riley leaned closer. It watched us. Like it wanted us to live. The word settled into Elena's bones. She reached out and held the girl's hand. Neither of them cried. That part had already been used up. The final death count was revised 3 times. 23. Then 26. Then unknown. Survivors told stories that didn't match, about the bear changing direction mid-charge, about it ignoring some people completely while targeting others, about the way it would stop and wait instead of finishing the kill. Biologists dismissed it as trauma distortion. Elena didn't. She gave her statement anyway. Detailed. Calm. Precise. She talked about terrain use. About delayed attacks. About learned behavior that went far beyond instinct. The room had gone very quiet when she finished. One man finally cleared his throat. Ranger Ward, he said carefully, are you suggesting intent? Elena met his eyes. I'm suggesting intelligence. That word changed everything. The hearings lasted months. Wildlife policy was rewritten in language so cautious it trembled. Entire regions were reclassified. Access points were shut down permanently. Educational materials were quietly updated. Grizzlies are not predictable. Survival is not guaranteed. Tourism plummeted. The nation argued. Some demanded extermination. Others demanded protection. The park reopened in sections, under armed escort, with curfews and mandatory tracking devices. And still, people disappeared. Not many. Not enough to make headlines. Hikers who never came back. Campers whose fires were found cold and undisturbed. Deep in the woods, where cameras failed and signals died, something moved that no one could explain. Elena resigned 6 months later. She didn't leave the mountains. She rented a small cabin on the edge of the park, close enough to hear the wind through the trees at night. People asked why she stayed. She never answered. Some nights, when the air was just right, she could smell it again, that musky, metallic scent carried on the breeze. On those nights, she didn't sleep. She sat on the porch with a flashlight and a flare, watching the tree lean. Waiting. Because she understood something now that the world was still struggling to accept. The grizzly had never been a monster. It was a message. A reminder written in blood. And silence, that the wild does not belong to us, that it does not care about our rules or our comfort, and that sometimes, when we push too far, it pushes back. Harder. Far off, deep in the black of the forest, a low sound rolled through the night, too deep to be thunder, too deliberate to be the wind. Elena didn't flinch. She stood. Somewhere out there, something remembered her. And she knew, absolutely, terrifyingly, that grisly night was not a story about what happened. It was a warning about what could happen again. Because the wilderness was still awake. And it was listening. The end.